Sarah Armstrong, Sara Says, brought to you by Cousin Sara Productions. Since the terrible events of the 14th, Valentine's Day, the shooting in Parkland, Florida, I've had a lot of my followers ask me if I had something to say about it. And so I had to take some time and think about it and pray about it. And yeah, I do have something to say. Many times as people of faith, particularly Christians, we tend to say or ask the same question. Well, what would Jesus do? But I think it's time for us to ask a different question. What would Jesus have us do? What would Jesus have us do? And I think we find the answer to that question by watching and remembering what Jesus did. And I've got 3 examples of that. First, you remember the story in Matthew when it's repeated in Mark, I believe, too, when Jesus is walking with the crowd and people are all around him, and a woman touches the hem of his garment, and she's been suffering from a bleeding disorder for years, and he stops. In the midst of all that chaos, he stops and he turns around and he says, "My daughter, by your faith, you're healed." But he felt her touch. And then there is when Jesus is in the midst of a crowd and there is a blind beggar and he screams out, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And he turns to him and he said, "What can I do for you?" And he said, "I want to see." And he heals him. And the blind man can see. And then there is the instance of Jesus at the well. And the Samaritan woman comes to the well in the middle of the day. Samaritans and Jews, like Jesus was, they don't talk. They hate each other. But he can see that this woman is in pain. She's hurting. She's alone, or she wouldn't be at the well in the middle of the day, because the women come to the well early in the morning or late in the evening. And he begins to talk to this isolated, fractured woman, and he gives her hope. So what would Jesus have us do in this whole situation with gun violence? Our children, like the woman, are tapping us on the shoulder and saying, "Save me, help me, I've suffered all these years, do something." And the blind man is screaming out, "Son of David, help me." Our children are screaming out, "Help us," because we're afraid to go to school. We're afraid we're going to die. And like the Samaritan woman who is isolated and alone, those suffering from depression and mental illness are saying, "Show me some hope. Show me that you care." So I ask you, not what would Jesus do, but what are you going to do? What are we going to do in Jesus' name? If we are who we say we are, we need to stand up and step out and speak up and do something. Jesus was sent here to save the world, and in the midst of saving the world, he had time to stop and heal a woman and heal a blind beggar and give a word of hope to a woman he was supposed to help, to hate. In his name, what are we going to do?